Hi, I'm James Rowling, and I am a writer and a visual artist. In other words, I tell stories through words and images. Now, first, I would like to thank Marcel Haddix, Gemma Cooper Novak, and the entire Writing Our Lives team for inviting me to share a quick writing and drawing prompt with all of you, the Writing Our Lives class of 2020. Now, let me share my screen with you. Recently, on October 19th, a feature story appeared in the New York Times about the life and career of photographer Dawood Bey. Born in the borough of Queens and raised in New York City, Dawood is a 2017 winner of what is known as the MacArthur Genius Grant, awarded annually since 1981 to individuals for their exceptional creativity in a wide range of fields. In the New York Times article, Dawood relates the following brief origin story about the genesis of his own creative identity. I'll read it for you. For many years, Bey has traced his origin story as an artist back to the moment in 1968 when his godmother gave him his first camera, an Argus C3 35mm rangefinder that had belonged to his godfather. The couple didn't have any children of their own, and Bey believes that his godfather, who had recently died, was a hobbyist. I will not say I was excited to receive it, he said, but I had enough presence of mind to say thank you. Soon, though, he became obsessed with learning how to use it. He bought photography magazines, and his parents let him turn the family kitchen into a darkroom, covering the window with black fabric. He took his first photography class at a local YMCA. One day, he saw a sign for something called the MOT photography studio on Hollis Avenue and walked in. The owner, a Black man named Levy J. Smith, took Bey under his wing and taught him how to develop film and make prints. He was the one who sat me down and walked me through everything, he said. What I learned from him was basically what I continue to use all the way through my career. The Argus now sits on a shelf with the rest of Bey's vintage cameras. So Dawood's origin story began from a place of nurturing and support and marked the beginning of his journey toward his mastery over the photographic medium, a mastery still recognized decades after he first started to experiment with refining his talent and developing his abilities. But if we're being honest, some origin stories have much uglier beginnings. You know how in superhero movies, there's always a scene where a new hero is first figuring out their powers and how to use them. Now, in Dawood's origin story, he was first introduced to his own creative superpowers through, let's call it the Shazam scepter of his Argus rangefinder camera. That was what first triggered his transformation into a kind of creative superhero. A creative superhero capable of telling stories that no one else was looking for. Stories that no one else was interested in even telling. Now, these are all the photographs, some of the photographs of Dawood Bey's huge portfolio of images. But I probably don't need to remind you that superhero origin stories don't all begin from a place of nurturing and support. In fact, some superhero origin stories begin with pain, or with loss, or with self-doubt. For example, Batman's origin story began with the shattering trauma of witnessing the murder of his own parents and learning to overcome a crippling fear of bats that first overcame him after he accidentally fell into a hidden cave. Superman's origin story began when he was orphaned by the cataclysmic destruction of his entire planet and his race of people. Likewise, my origin story begins with the development of my own creative superpowers as a writer and as a visual artist. Um, and that moment when I came to the conclusion as a young boy that I was born ugly. Similar to this year's Writing Our Lives theme, in order to tell my own creative origin story, the story of how I discovered and developed my personal creative superpowers and grew to become an artist and a writer and an elementary school art teacher and now a college professor. Every day I wrote. Every day I wrote, often for weeks and months at a time. I even drew the colored pencil self portrait for the cover of my new book, Growing Up Ugly Memoirs of a Black Boy Daydreaming, which will be released nationwide next month, by the way. I'm going to stop sharing. So, now for today's writing inspiration, I invite you to grab your pen or pencil and your writer's notebook or a sketchbook. And I want you to turn to the next blank page and reflect on the following questions. What are my creative superpowers? You can either write it out as a reflection uh, or draw it, or both write it and draw it, just like you might see in a comic or a graphic novel. You could title it My Personal Creative Origin Story. And to figure out what part of your life to focus on, consider the following questions. What activities do you love to give your attention to, even if no one else is around? What are the things that you naturally work harder at than most people that you know, just because? And finally, what can you imagine yourself contributing to the world or just sharing with those that you love, just as you develop your own creative set of superpowers? It's okay, by the way, if you haven't totally mastered all of your powers just yet, because that will come with time by just putting in the work. All that it takes to get you started in this written reflection is either remembering what you have already accomplished or have overcome, or just imagining all that you feel that you're capable of, that you believe that you are capable of going forward. So, with that, I thank you in advance for investing in your own storytelling. I look forward to reading your creative origin stories and seeing your drawings, hopefully later on this week. So please enjoy today's challenge, and I thank you.